Hi, and welcome to AE-Help's IELTS test preparation videos. This is an introduction to the IELTS exam, the International English Language Testing System. Let's talk about what is IELTS, why IELTS is important and why it's important to get a good score on IELTS, and how IELTS works, and how you should study for IELTS. So, what is IELTS, the International English Language Testing System? Well, simply, it's the largest and most widespread test of English proficiency in the world. It measures your ability in all four areas of communication: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The IELTS originates from Britain, so of course it uses the British English for most parts. It's managed by three bodies: Cambridge University, British Council, and IDP International. It's a standardized test of English. This means that the same test is administered on the same test date no matter where you are in the world. So whether you're taking the IELTS exam in the United States, in the UAE, in India, in China, or in the UK, on the same test day, the same test will be given. There are two versions of the test. One is the academic, the other is the general. It's very important that you know which test you need to take before you sit the exam. Alright, now that we know a little bit about what IELTS is, let's talk a little bit about why IELTS is important and why you may need to take the IELTS exam. So, why has the IELTS exam become so popular? Well, again, it's a standardized test of English. And the marking is standardized, meaning it's the same no matter where you take the test in the world. This is important because it makes the scores on the IELTS exam reliable and valid, so it can be trusted by institutions. Remember again, there are two versions of the exam, the academic and the general. The academic test is usually taken for post-secondary requirements. So if you're going to college or university, especially in an English-speaking country, you're likely required to take the academic IELTS exam as a prerequisite. Some schools will take a score as low as 5.5, while others may require scores as high as 8. Usually, most universities and colleges need a score of 6.5 on the academic IELTS with no section of the exam under 6. The other version, the general version, is taken mostly for immigration purposes. Governments, for example the Canadian government, will require a certain score on the IELTS exam before a person is allowed to immigrate or acquire citizenship. This is necessary to show a minimum level of English proficiency to be able to function in the English-speaking society. However, don't forget that a good IELTS score can be used for various other purposes as well. First and foremost, if you're able to get a good score on the IELTS, then you're able to prove that you have a good level of English proficiency. This can come in handy when you're applying for a job, and it may be a good idea to mention it on your CV or resume. So it's a good idea to study hard and get the best scores possible. Now the good question here, of course, is how? So how should you study for the IELTS exam, and how is the IELTS exam administered? So how does the IELTS actually work? Well, the first step, if you know that you need to take the IELTS exam, is go online to IELTS.org and check the test date and the test location that's nearest to you. Now that you know the test date and the test location, you are ready to prepare. The IELTS exam has, again, 4 sections. It has a listening section, a reading section, a writing section, and a speaking section. The listening, reading, and writing take about 2.5 hours to complete. You will do it on paper, and there will be various types of questions for each section. The writing section has 2 questions and will take about an hour to complete. The speaking section is done in the form of an interview and takes anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. It is recorded, then marked later. If you know that you need to take the IELTS exam, you should send your application about 2 weeks before you actually have to sit the test date. Now be very careful because some test dates fill up very quickly and spaces are limited. Before you send your application, make sure that you filled it out correctly. Look at the checklist that's provided and go through in detail. Make sure that you have every part completed and you have the necessary documentation that they require. If you don't, they will send it back and you might not be able to sit the test that you're trying to apply for. All right, so now that you've applied for the IELTS, what should you do? Well, ideally, you should start studying at least a couple months before you actually need to sit the IELTS exam. In order to be able to truly improve your scores and make sure that you have the confidence and the knowledge required to get a high score on the exam, giving yourself about 60 days of study time is a great idea. If you don't have 60 days, if you only have a month, you can still do quite a bit. However, studying just a couple days or even a week before the exam is not a good idea. Make sure that you do at least a couple of practice exams before you sit the official exam. IELTS is a fairly expensive test. It costs around $250 to $300. So it's a good idea to be prepared. Now, when you're ready to study and you sit down, make sure you have a plan. Don't just start studying. Have a schedule, have the books, have the materials necessary to help you improve your English in these 4 areas of communication. The only real way to improve your IELTS score is to improve your English. So study hard and make sure that you use techniques that work. For more information and lots more help studying for the IELTS exam to get you the best score possible, please visit us at www.aehelp.com and join the full course.